Messiah, son of David. You know, we see these things and it makes sense to us. Not everybody's going to see that, especially if they don't understand type and antitype. The feasts are said to be types of Messiah's work on this earth. When studying the feast, we find that the spring feast predominantly spoke of the work of Messiah, son of Joseph, but the fall feast spoke of Messiah, son of David. And I read that in the past tense. Really, I should have been reading in the present. It actually is written that way. They speak. Today they speak of these two manifestations of Messiah. Does the picture given in the feast accomplish any of the jobs which are spoken of by the feast? See, the picture, the presentation, really doesn't do anything other than give us a warning, a message, a precursor. These feasts are not doing the work of Messiah. They are teaching the work of Messiah. Which is superior? The feast which gives the picture, or the person who actually implements the needed changes? We all know it's the person. Again, the type and the antitype. Now, I'm really stressing these two because this is one of the confusions that's brought in the study of Scripture. Because you see, this verse is totally misunderstood. Colossians 2:16 says, "So let no one judge you in food or in drink, or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ." Now, most people read this and they say, "Oh, we have Christ. We don't need those old feasts, Sabbaths, new moon celebrations, food and drink offerings. That's, or just even dietary laws. Don't let anybody judge you for that. You just tell them, hey, I don't have to do that." But that's not what it's saying. How do you keep somebody from judging you? Had two questions, two answers. One of them was you can't, and the other one was humility, and both are correct. I'm going to throw in a third one, also correct. Doing what you're supposed to do. You see, if you're acting properly, then people won't judge you for not doing it, right? Okay. These verses, put them in context, were written in the first century. They were written when everybody was keeping the feasts. You can even read it in Eusebius' Ecclesiastical History, how the Christians all went to Jerusalem for the feast, for Passover. Now, a lot of people don't want to read Eusebius' Ecclesiastical History because, after all, that was written by Eusebius, who was one of those Roman Catholic people. Okay, guys, we got to get off our high horse here and start recognizing that history can only be received from people who are writing history. And it does matter what their paradigm is. You just have to recognize it and remove the paradigm from the information. Yeah, he's going to twist it a little bit to his own desires, and every historian will do that. Eusebius was a historian of the first century church. He recorded a lot of documents. And you see, in the recording of those documents, it told us that the Christians were keeping the feast. But 2,000 years later, the church next door doesn't realize this. And if we have a little bit of evidence and we're not real pushy, and we're very friendly and loving, they may be able to see the evidence and go, wow, I never knew that. But if we're pushy and demanding and not very loving, I will guarantee you, when you show them the evidence, they won't be impressed. They'll immediately judge the evidence. They'll say, well, that evidence can't be any good because it doesn't support what I believe. So let no one judge you in food or in drink. That's actually saying, do the food and the drink according to the Scripture, and no one will judge you. Or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbath. That means, come on guys, show up to the festivals, the new moons, and the Sabbath, which are a shadow of the things to come. You see, they were speaking of Christ. That's why we're doing them to begin with. But the substance is of Christ. In other words, He is the actual thing talked about. He is the antitype. He is the important thing. Type. From typus, a model, symbol. In Greek, typos. A figure, archetype, model, original. Now look at this. It says a blow or a mark made by a blow. You see, that's how it transferred into the printing press, in that the printing press was pushing. Originally, it might have taken a hammer to hammer it into metal or rock, or it took a ring to put it into the wax. Wax is a much softer substance. Didn't take much of a blow there. Okay, so it says a person, thing, or event that represents or symbolizes another, especially another that is thought will appear later. It's a symbol or sign. Let's look at it from the Webster's New World College Dictionary. It says resembling or corresponding. Now this is antitype here. Resembling or corresponding to types, figures. See type. Check it out, which we've already gone through. The person or thing represented or foreshadowed by an earlier type or symbol. Kind of getting the definition to the two. Is this getting solid now that we're going over it and over it? In theology, this is from the Macintosh dictionary that's on my computer here. It says, a foreshadowing in the Old Testament of a person or event of the Christian tradition. In other words, something that's telling what happened in the New Testament. Okay. Got a general idea about what that means. People often look at Scripture and argue over its meaning. They think if it means this, it cannot mean that. Now remember, a couple of days ago when we were discussing the various levels of understanding, in the Sunday school level of theology, everything is being polarized. It's either this or that. Remember, we had things like it's either grace or law. And we found out that that was a silly argument, that they aren't opposites. You can't even put them at the opposite end of the spectrum. And when you do, all it does is confuse the message. So that is the level in which people are analyzing. That is their complexity of analysis. They can only think about two things. You know, they say a monkey has one, two, or many. That's how he recognizes things. One, he might be able to deal with. Two, he has to really watch out. Three are totally overpowering and he can't deal with them. And so that flight response comes with three no matter what. And when you discover that, you can actually, the animals in the wild, you get 3 dogs, and there may be 40 animals, but they still get spooked by the three dogs because that's as far as they can count. You know, the problem is that in our analysis of Scripture, unfortunately, most can only count to two possibilities. That's where we're really getting in trouble. Now, I hope that you guys can at least add a third one. We would like to at least be on the level of a monkey. But you know, there's really many more possibilities in most situations. And as long as we only limit it to two, we're really in trouble. Next time you're thinking, well, it's either this or that, maybe you need to start thinking, what about a third opinion? What could be another possibility? Now, I've noticed myself do this in my family, where I'm going, it's either this way or that way. Okay, this means that I am not analyzing the situation well enough, and somebody's going to get harmed in the process. When I start thinking like that, it's time for me to refigure. And I need to remember these words. That's why I'm saying them right now. I need to remember these words for myself. You guys need to remember these words also when you're discussing it with others. When you're discussing Scripture with others. You need to stop thinking it's either this or that. And you need to start looking for the third, the fourth, possibly the fifth, maybe even a whole lot more options. Because when you're doing that, and you can convey it to them that there may be more possibilities, you know what that does? It stretches them, and they begin to come to the next level of thought. And when you bring them to the next level of thought, you might be able to actually talk with them. Until you get them there, you're not going to be able to talk with them. There's nothing you're going to be able to share that's going to be an answer for them, because it's them against you. That's the two sides. You don't want to be the one they're against. You want to be the one that has information that they can use. You want them to view you as the person that has untold resources, not as the person who is their enemy. As long as we approach everything in a polarized fashion, we will always approach ourselves as the enemy. We will always present ourselves as the enemy. Okay. They think it means this. If it means this, it cannot mean that. This is the Sunday school level of abstract thought. In it, Scripture can only have one meaning, and I have to have the exact correct meaning. You see, if anything varies from what I believe, then that means that you're going to hell, because I know I'm not going to hell. You see? You know your beliefs are right. That's why we can't even deal with it in that fashion. When one learns to think more abstractly, he realizes that there can be more than one meaning to each passage. The type and antitype concept reveals this clearly. You see, you're looking at the Scripture, the story of Joseph, and you say, this is literal. This really happened. This has a meaning to it. Right here in the time period that it was written, it had a meaning. And we can discuss about the things that Joseph did. We can even make application about being loyal to truth, about being righteous, and not everything that happens to you that is bad is truly bad. It may be for a greater purpose. We can make all kinds of explanations of what he went through and apply them to our life today. But that doesn't mean that the story of Joseph is not speaking of Messiah. And so, yes, it means this, and yes, it means Messiah too. You see, more than one meaning. So a person on this level of abstract thought would say, since it means this, it must also mean another thing. The types are literal stories with which God meant to convey a deeper meaning. Did you ever wonder if Abraham only lived maybe, about 8 or 9 chapters that speak of his life? Is that all of Abraham's life? Now you see, God took specific stories about Abraham that had a message in it that he wanted to convey. And since he took this snapshot and said, this is the part that I want to tell about, I don't want to tell about all the horrible things he did over at this place and all the righteous things he did over there. We don't need a documentary here of his life that takes his entire life to read. What we need are these small portions that will convey a greater meaning. So we're going to find all kinds of passages in Scripture that can be understood many ways. And the thing is that the many ways it can be understood can be correct. All of them. It's not, I see it this way and you see it that way, so we can't be friends. We need to see how that we can have unity even though there's some variation of thought. By using types, God included a foreshadowing in Scripture which made way for the use of metaphors to explain these types. In our next session, we will explore the use of metaphors and examine why we must know that they are metaphors. See, we're going to get into grammar. Without this knowledge, we will likely make many mistakes in interpreting the Bible. Some, get this next line here, some have even lost their faith in God from this kind of misunderstanding. Can you believe, I have watched it many times, where people have lost their faith in God solely from bad grammar? It sounds incredible. But in the next session, you're going to see how it happens. So let's take a break. Stand up and stretch. And we will start again in probably about a half an hour, at 10:30, when you hear the trumpet blast. Please come to this next session. This is the session that is the hardest to take. But it does the most good so that we're going to be able to, in the following sessions, put it back together. Okay? 10:30, isn't it?
It's 11 o'clock.
35 after 11.
Did we start? We started real late, I guess.
You started at 10. You started on time.
Okay, 10, 11, yeah. 11:30. It looks like 10:30 to me on the clock, but you know. Sorry.
One of those type things.